What's up, my Mindset Challenge people? It is day 23. Dr. Kyle Lovelace here. I'm going to talk to you guys about the mindset because that's what we do. We wake up every morning, we read the Bible, we get our mindset right, and we take on our day. So today, good stuff for you. I was actually talking to my mom last night. She's in town. She's going to be leaving today, but I was talking to her about just her life and the things that she's been through in life. And one of the things that it was a challenge for her early on when I was 2 or 3 years old, and my sister was young, was alcohol. And she ended up going into AA for Alcoholics Awareness, and it became a part of that. So I grew up in those meetings, not most of my life, but probably a couple of years going to those meetings. And, and now she's been sober for, I don't know, 20 years, 20 something, or I guess 30 years, 30 something years. And she's worked with so many people now, and she still goes to them. And I think what engaged me in this conversation as I was talking to her last night, and we were talking about AA meetings and how she goes to those weekly. And I said, well, so are you just kind of leading these meetings, or are you helping people? And so she's a sponsor for people and or a mentor, more than I guess you'd call it, for individuals. And she's talked about all the awesome people she's met through the years through this process. She also talked about falling off and how she went back to drinking at one point and how it affected her and everything else. But one of the things she says, I got to a point, and this is when I was younger, I got to a point where um, that where I didn't want to spend my day tired and hungover. I wanted to start running because she wasn't a runner then, but she had a friend that ran and she wanted to run. So I wanted to start running. I wanted to be healthier, and I wanted to volunteer and things like at the school and things like that. And then she just said, I really just for our family, I just wanted something different, and because she was drinking all day, every day. Excuse me. And so she said, I want something different for our family. And so she found this why all of a sudden came up to a point where it got hard enough that the things that were hard for her to quit drinking, right? For some people, it's quit eating sugar. For some people, it's exercising. For some people, whatever that is, that's really holding you back in life, that's making you tired all the time, that's keeping you from being fully you, right? We all have that in our life at some point, and it's something we constantly have to work on. And so she finally said, enough's enough. She quit drinking, went to AA. And so one of the things she talked about is that it's easy to fall back into those bad habits. And one of the things they do in AA is not only do they have a sponsor, but they have daily things that you do to track back. And it's almost like a checklist. I forget what they call it, but it's like a checklist that you go back and you look through when you start having negative things come up in your life that might lead you back to drinking. They have things that a checklist you're going through, and it's what do they call that? It is it's kind of, you do it in business too. You just kind of evaluate your statistics. You evaluate what's happening in your life every day, and you decide, okay, I'm moving into that negative in this mode. I'm moving into a place where that makes me want to drink, or that makes me, not be fully who I am. And so I need to evaluate this and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? And what is it that's making me feel this way? And going through that process and saying, okay, I don't have to feel this way. And then start, instead of looking at what seems like something they can't control, figure out the parts of it that you can control, and then let it go, give it to God. And that's another thing that they do through AA is you have that source, right? They do a lot of scriptural stuff, especially the one she's in, and they bring it back to God, and they build that relationship with God. So you have that groundwork, something to get back to. And that's what I always talk about is you got to have that source that you always go back to when things are tough and you feel like things aren't going well. So really proud of her. She's done amazing over her life, obviously. And doing that, she mentors people and has changed so many moms' lives by being in that in AA. But it's that mindset of what I just talked about. Also, I read this morning, I was reading in Acts in Scripture, and it was right after Stephen had been martyred. I talked about that on a video in the past, how they stoned him. But then Saul, and you might not know much about Scripture, so you can look this stuff up, but Saul was going to take out the Christians, right? He just had this he was going to go take out all Christians, and he was going into homes, pulling people out. And then there were still people there. There was the actual guys that stayed to bury Stephen. And, so Saul was had his men going into these houses and pulling people out into the streets, but people were still worshiping God. They were still seeking after Jesus. They were still going around preaching the good news, even though the main kingdom there was taking them out and trying to kill them. And so you look at that and you say, well, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just run and hide? And the reason is because they weren't focusing on Saul, right? They weren't focusing on the scary, fearful things in their life. We live in a world right now with COVID and with everything else where everybody's focused on the fear. They're focused on the scary thing to them instead of taking a step back, focusing on the good. So those Christians at the time that weren't just running and hiding, that were actually still delivering the good news, those people were focused on Jesus. They were focused on the good news. And so their life was peace. It was joy. Yes, there was hard times and everything else, but their demeanor and who they were was full of peace and joy. And so no matter how hard it is, no matter how rough your life might seem, no matter how hard going through a challenge like this might be, or anything in life really might be, if you have that ground, that place that you can look back at the good news, then you can have that peace. You can have that joy that's still there, even though it seems hard. And I think that's the most important part, is that you have that joy. It's not what's happening in your life. It's not your circumstances. It's not your expectations not being met. It's that one thing you have that keeps the peace in your soul, that keeps the joy in your life, even when you look around and things are a mess, right? There's places in America right now where you look around and it's just a mess, but you can still have that peace and joy and also say, hey, this is a time better than never. I look at, some people look at the time right now and say, oh, everything's falling apart. The economy's falling apart. Inflation's happening. Gas prices are up. All these things are happening. Kids are wearing masks in schools. Kids are, there's bringing guns to school, and there's all this stuff happening in our world today. Or you could look at it and say, this is an opportunity. There's more darkness seemingly than there has been before, or at least in my life. And it's no better time. The more darkness, the easier it is for the light to shine. And so be that light today. Be that light in your life. Be that light in your family's life every single day, realizing, hey, it might seem tough out there right now, but the good news is you're the light, and you have the opportunity right now more than ever to shine. And so there's never been a better time than now for our kids to grow up and have an opportunity to live life with purpose instead of just dwindling around in life. Final thing here, I heard this quote one time that when times are tough, our tough times make great men. Great men make comfortable times make weak men. So when times get tough, it's no better time than ever to be a great person and a great opportunity to live with purpose. So you guys have an awesome day. Remember who you are.